right, good evening. My name is Stephanie Wells here from MEFA. Tonight, we're here to talk about understanding your financial aid offers and paying the college bill. Before we get into the meat of the program tonight, I am going to give some FAFSA updates because I assume that many of you are in limbo on your FAFSA or needing to complete it or correct it or do something with your FAFSA given all the delays this year. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We do have everybody on mute, so please type your questions in the Q&A. If you raise your hand or type it in the chat, I might not see that. So please type your questions in the Q&A, and I'm happy to answer those as we go or answer them at the end. Make sure everybody's questions are answered. We do have live transcripts, so if you need that feature, you can click that button in the toolbar. So just a little bit about MEFA for those of you who might not be as familiar. MEFA is a quasi-state authority here in Massachusetts. We're a self-financing independent state authority, and we're actually created in 1982 to help families pay for college with a low-cost loan program. Since then, we've gone on to offer savings plans, as well as a lot of education and guidance, college and career web planning portal called MEFA Pathway, and lots of great guidance curriculums for families, school counselors, and college administrators. So congratulations, high school seniors and your parents, for getting to this point. It can be a very stressful process, and you're getting close to the finish line. You're almost there, but congratulations to getting to this point. So here's what we'll talk about tonight. I'll start off with some FAFSA updates, literally up to the minute as of this morning, these updates, because things are changing each week with the FAFSA and all the delays this year. So we'll catch up to speed on that. Go through all the ins and outs and tools and resources to use to understand your financial aid offers. Once they start coming in the door, some of you may have already gotten a few. We'll talk about options to pay the college bill, trying to reduce loan debt at every turn as much as we can, as well as next steps in the process and free resources as we go. So let's first get started with FAFSA updates. Again, for those of you who are just joining us, we are recording tonight's webinar. These slides will be shared with you, so don't feel like you have to write down every website that we're talking about, because you will get access to this. And we'll start by talking about FAFSA. So right now, where are we with the FAFSA? Hopefully, most of you have either started it or submitted the FAFSA. But as we speak, colleges, state agencies, and scholarship organizations have only recently, last week, started to get a few FAFSAs in at a time. The federal government, Department of Education, has started to send that information to colleges. It's going to take a while before they all get caught up. But colleges are starting to get some FAFSAs in the door in dribs and drabs. So just be patient. If you know your FAFSA might have been processed, but you haven't heard from the college yet, they're working on processing everything. Now, online FAFSAs, if you applied online, those will be processed first before any paper FAFSAs. So we definitely recommend, if you haven't started the process, to do it online. It's going to be quicker and easier to update and get processed. Once your FAFSA has been processed, the student will get an email informing them that their FAFSA has been processed. You may also see that on the dashboard of your FSA ID account. So students, that email will go to the student, and it will let them know that the information has been sent to the schools and the state on their form. So here's what that dashboard might look like, some of the different statuses you may see. And then here's a QR code that you can scan if you want to attend our webinar on April 4th. We are dedicating that evening to help families correct their FAFSAs, update them. Normally we're doing this October through March, but right now we're in a condensed timeline since FAFSAs just started getting processed. And so we'll be pairing up families. We'll do a brief presentation and pairing families up with experts to help them one-on-one in a private Zoom room to update their FAFSA. So feel free to scan that QR code and register for that program. I'll have it again at the end of the presentation, so you can scan it then. And you'll be getting these slides through email, so you can sign up there. Now, some of the things we'll go over in that webinar are FAFSA corrections, how to make those corrections and updates based on the current FAFSA, the new FAFSA. So students whose FAFSA has been processed, you're currently not able to make corrections on your FAFSA. We're hoping that any day now, the Federal Department of Education will announce that folks can correct their FAFSAs. They have said it will be in late March. So we're hoping any day now that we'll get that announcement so we can, shout it from the rooftops that you can update your FAFSAs. So by April 4th, when we have our webinar, you should be able to update FAFSAs by then. You should be able to make corrections on your FAFSA submission summary online or on paper or contacting FSA. We definitely recommend doing everything online. It's much quicker and easier that way. Regardless of how you originally applied, even if you applied by paper, students can access their FAFSA submission summary and submit corrections online if they created a studentaid.gov account. So you just have to create that account. Now, once your FAFSA has been processed, give the colleges at least 2 weeks before expecting a financial aid offer from them. You may have already received an estimated financial aid offer, likely from the CSS profile form if you filled that out, or from another form that the college had you fill out, maybe their own institutional form. But nothing's going to be final until those FAFSAs are processed. So give the colleges at least 2 weeks. Keep in mind that in a normal year, they've been doing all of this work, processing FAFSAs, helping families with appeals, and understanding the financial aid offers from October to March. Right now, we're in March and they still haven't gotten a lot of the data. So we're cramming 6 months into a few week timeline. So we'll all just have to be patient, especially with the colleges as they try their best to catch up once they start receiving your FAFSA data. Now, because of all the delays, many schools are extending their financial aid and even enrollment deposit deadlines because they know that these delays are causing families, anxiety. They might not have gotten their financial aid offers from all their schools, and you really do need to have that information to make an educated decision about where the student's going to attend. So colleges know that. They know about the delays. They're dealing with all the frustrations of the delays as well. So just keep that in mind. If you're worried that the college isn't going to extend a deadline, just get in touch with them. Maybe go to the open campus programs. We'll talk about that later in the webinar tonight. But if you're having trouble getting a scholarship organization or a college to extend a deadline, at least take screenshots of any errors that you've encountered that may have prevented you from submitting your FAFSA, for example, and at least be able to submit that to try and meet some deadlines, even if they don't have all the information. Now, we do have to be as patient as we can possibly be, especially with colleges right now. They are really trying to do their best in processing 6 months worth of FAFSAs in a few week time frame just to get caught up. Now, they will be processing first year students first, so incoming freshmen, they'll be getting those done. So just keep in mind, if you're a returning student, it might take a little bit longer to get your financial aid offer. They're going to be focusing on the freshmen who are, high school seniors right now. We do have a couple of other events if you need help filing the FAFSA, making edits, whatever you might need. Evenings of April 8th and May 13th. Called FAFSA Day. We're working in conjunction with FAFSA Day. You can also call MEFA 9 to 5 during the week. So we'll have professionals on hand from colleges that can help you. We'll put you in a private Zoom room with them so everything's confidential, and they can help you finish your FAFSA or update it. If you're running into problems, you can get one-on-one assistance. All right, so I'm going to start talking about financial aid offers now that we've gotten a quick FAFSA update. If you have any questions, again, for those of you who are just joining us, feel free to type those in the Q&A and I'll keep an eye on that as we go. So some of you may have actually received a financial aid offer, or maybe 2 or 3. So you may have seen what a financial aid offer will look like. If not, here's a sample of what a financial aid offer might look like. It's usually you'll see the college's monies up front. That'll be the first few line items, grants and scholarships that you're being offered by the college, such as merit and need-based grants and scholarships. So they want you to see what they're giving you up front. So then you might see any federal or state grants or scholarships next on your financial aid offer that you might have qualified for. Any grants and scholarships are free money that you don't have to pay back. So that's the good stuff that we think of when we think of financial aid. But work study is also a form of financial aid. Work study is a job that a student can get on campus or in a part-time job, earn a little bit of money, 10, 15 hours a week to use towards some of the unbilled expenses that are part of the cost of attendance, like transportation, books, supplies, things like that. The nice thing about work study, if your family does qualify for that, it is a federal need-based program, is that the income the student earns is not reported the following year on the FAFSA form. So it's almost a double benefit there of it not having to include that income, but also getting that income to help pay for some of that cost of attendance. Now, the last thing you'll see on a financial aid offer is a federal direct student loan. So it might come in two different flavors, subsidized and unsubsidized. I'm going to talk about the loan in a little bit more detail in a second, but the subsidized portion is based on your family's financial need, meaning that interest is not going to be assessed on the subsidized portion. The rest of the loan, or for some families, the entire loan might be unsubsidized, and interest will accrue on the unsubsidized portion. Now, all of your financial aid from the federal, state government, as well as the college or university should be listed on your final financial aid offer once your FAFSA has been processed. Now, you'll notice that some of the offers look different, not only the amounts, but just the way they're laid out. So it can be a little confusing sometimes to try and compare them. So I have a great tool that I'll show you to help you do that. But you will need to accept all or part of the financial aid offer by the school's deadline, whatever that may be. Normally it's May 1st, but this year we know that some colleges are extending those deadlines to give families a little bit of flexibility to get all their financial aid offers in the door due to the FAFSA delays. So just find out from the colleges what their deadline is. If you're having trouble meeting that May 1st deadline, if it hasn't been extended, just get in touch with admissions or the financial aid office if it's a need-based program or a merit-based scholarship, and just let them know you're still waiting to hear from some schools to make a decision. See if you can get an extension or some flexibility there. Okay, so financial aid is going to come in the form of two different types, or could come in the form of two different types. First, you may see merit-based grants or scholarships on a financial aid offer. You'll first hear about that from the admissions office, typically, if it's from the college. And there are different types of merit-based aid, such as athletic scholarships, artistic, musical scholarships, but most merit-based aid is given out based on the student's overall admissions application or their academic talents or skills in that regard. Now, the criteria of who gets merit scholarships can differ from school to school. Even within the same college, they might have different levels of merit-based scholarships that have different criteria for renewal. So, for example, you want to find out if the student's going to go to that school, is there a minimum GPA that they need to maintain to keep that scholarship? Do they need to stay in the same major? Is it tied to that major? Things like that. So you definitely want to find out and understand what the student's responsibility is to keep that merit-based scholarship. Now, most financial aid that's given out is based on the family's financial need, based on those financial aid forms that you filled out. Those are awarded based on families' financial eligibility through standardized formulas, and most families aren't going to receive 100% of what they need. Most colleges, including the federal and state government, can't meet 100% of everybody's financial need. There are a small handful of schools nationwide that have very large endowments that can commit to that. But even if a college doesn't meet 100% of your need, it doesn't mean that whatever they are able to give you in a financial aid offer, maybe it's 80%, and that's enough to get you over the hump to be able to afford that school. So just keep that in mind if you're seeing big gaps in a financial aid offer or big differences from school to school. Now let's talk a little bit more about that federal direct student loan. I do have a question in the chat about it, which I'll answer on this slide as well. So the student is the borrower on that loan. They don't need a cosigner for this loan. It is one way for a family, for the student to take on some of the borrowing responsibility, have a little skin in the game on their own without a cosigner. There's no credit check on this loan. Now, the student can't borrow unlimited amounts on this loan. As you can see in the blue box on the right here, as a freshman, they can borrow up to $5,500. When we look at what's subsidized and what's unsubsidized, the maximum amount that a freshman can receive that's subsidized, meaning interest is not going to accrue on that portion, is $3,500. The rest of that loan, either $2,000 or the full $5,500, would be unsubsidized, meaning interest will accrue on that portion. Now, the subsidy is determined by the information that's filled out on your FAFSA form. That is not determined by the school. It is a federal formula. It's a standard formula that treats everybody equally. It determines your financial needs. So the subsidized portion did get a question about that asks who decides if loans are subsidized or unsubsidized. Is it the college? And is that something that can be appealed? So it is based on the FAFSA information. So we'll talk about appeals in a minute. But unless there's something different that you can provide to the college about a different financial circumstance than what was on your initial financial aid form, then they're giving you their best financial aid offer up front, and that's going to include any subsidized portion of that loan. Now, the interest rate right now is 5.50% fixed for 23-24 for students who are going to be in college next year. That rate will be announced in May, and it will go into effect every July 1st. So the rates did go up a little bit last year. They may go up again this year. We'll have to wait and see. But compared to, bank-based loans or, private loans, that is a pretty competitive rate, especially for a student who might not have established credit or income to borrow on their own without a cosigner. That's why these loans are considered federal student aid, because you can't go to a bank and get this type of loan with all of these benefits and subsidies and things like that. There is a small fee that's deducted from the loan amount of a little over 1.057%. Students do need to go through entrance counseling online it's basically like an online quiz to show that they understand their rights and responsibilities as a federal student loan borrower. Every student who borrows a federal student loan has to do this, as well as sign their promissory note online. Now, the FSA ID that the student created to fill out the FAFSA is the same ID they'll use to fill out their promissory note and do their entrance counseling. The nice thing about this federal direct student loan is that there's no payments due while the student's in school, and they can defer it for undergrad school, grad school, military, Peace Corps. There's lots of deferment options. There's even forgiveness options, for example, for public service work. There's teacher loan forgiveness, things like that you can look up at fsa.gov. But once a student does graduate and go into repayment, there's going to be lots of flexible repayment options for them to choose from. So it should make it more manageable and affordable to make those payments. So I have another question about this loan, about the subsidy. So the subsidized portion of that loan, where no interest is accruing, that subsidy will stop once the student graduates or leaves school. So as long as they're in school, that loan is going to be interest free. But once they leave school or graduate, then interest will start accruing on the entire loan. So good questions about the loans. All right, so in order to figure out, what you're going to be paying at each school, you really have to figure out the net price, the balance due, as well as the net price. So first, let's talk about that balance due, which is your billed charges due to the college. It's not the only amount you're going to have to come up with, because there's unbilled charges such as books, supplies, transportation, that kind of thing. But the billed charges are typically going to be tuition and fees, which every student is going to have to pay. If the student's living on campus, they'll also have, housing and their meal plan, food and housing that is going to be billed by the college. And the student may also be charged for health insurance. So in Massachusetts, every student has to be insured. If the student is insured on their parent's plan or has health insurance, you don't have to pay for that cost through the college, which can save you up to around $2,000. So make sure that you're waiving that health insurance if the student has a plan in place through their parents or employer. because you don't want to have to pay for health insurance twice. Now, what you're going to do is take those college charges, and you can get an estimate on their website if you haven't seen that already. And then you'll deduct any financial aid you received, including the enrollment deposit. Whatever's left over, that's what you're going to owe the college in usually a biannual bill for the fall semester and spring semester, split up in half and half. So MEFA's created a great tool called the College Cost Calculator to help you through this process. So let me go there real quick and I will demonstrate this for you. All right, so here's a calculator here, and this is right on mefa.org. You'll have links to this in the slides. Now, I'm not going to fill out every one, the column for every school. I'll just show you real quick how it works. And you can use this tool. You can create a spreadsheet with these line items to create your own. You can add up to 5 schools here, 5 financial aid offers. And you can, let me scroll down before I start filling it out. You can print it, and you can also save it as a PDF by printing it. Unfortunately, you can't export it into a spreadsheet or email the results, but you can print it to save your printed results. So let's pretend we're looking at a college, maybe it's a private school up here in the Northeast, with their tuition and fees, $55,000, room and board, food and housing. We're looking at $15,000. I'm just kind of making these numbers up based on what I've seen. And then books and supplies, that is going to be an unbilled expense that you'll want to budget for. If you can pay that out of pocket, that's great. You can borrow for these unbilled expenses, but we always try to encourage families, if you do need to borrow, to really focus on those billed charges. Try to pay for some of this out-of-pocket stuff unbilled expenses out of pocket. And usually the college will provide you with an estimated budget of what they recommend it might approximately cost for all those unbilled expenses. So for health insurance, since this family is insured, I'm going to put 0 as the cost here. And then any other costs that you want to put in here, such as, airfare if the student's going to be going to school in California. So we'll just put, $2,000. I know that might be a lot, but if they're coming back and forth a few times a year, that might be reasonable. Now the calculator is going to add this information up at the bottom. You can see 75,000, a little over, is what the cost is, which can be kind of an overwhelming number to think about, but let's start putting in our financial aid and then see what we come up with. So let's pretend we have a federal Pell Grant, and maybe the state has given the students some aid as well. And then the college has given a very generous grants and scholarships of $100,000 over 4 years at $25,000 a year. And then if you have any outside scholarships that you've already found out about from the local guidance office, the local community, you can add those in here too. So let's say I'll just put local scholarship. And let's say that was, $1,000. So you can see we separate out the free monies, the grants and scholarships, from the federal student loans, which are also financial aid, because you do want to think about those differently when you're comparing financial aid offers. Who's giving me the free money and who's expecting me to borrow? What is each school charging me for tuition, fees, housing, things like that? It is good to kind of look at them all side by side in a format like this, rather than trying to compare all the pieces of paper and the stuff you're downloading off the school's portal. So let's say the student did receive that full subsidized amount of the freshman year loan. Then we have the other unsubsidized amount. Some colleges may also have their own institutional loan. So you can see it's deducting the financial aid from that cost of attendance. Now, work study may also be on a financial aid offer. Typically, you don't want to deduct that from the bill, but you do want to put that in there because it can be applied to some of those unbilled expenses. So let's say we get $1,500 in work study. Then you want to add in any other resources that you might have available. And I'll talk more in detail about what those resources might be. But let's pretend for this example that they saved in a U Fund 529 plan. Family saved $20,000. and they've decided we're going to do 5,000 a year for 4 years towards the bill out of our U fund. So once we start adding everything and deducting everything, that $75,000 cost, which is a little scary, is a little less scary of a number of, a little less than 28,000. So this is just an example of how the calculator works so that you can, use this as a tool. MEFA can also help you on one-on-one meetings or through these webinars to try and, help you understand your financial aid offers. You can email them to us during a one-on-one meeting, and, we can share our screen and go through it with you. But it's a great way to help just understand, what that balance is. So when you're comparing your net price or your net cost from school to school, you do want to look at that bottom line number and make sure you know what are they expecting for loans? Are they adding in any federal parent plus loans, which is not financial aid? You want to keep an eye on that. And consider a 4-year plan. So it's an annual process. You have to apply for financial aid each year. And if your family does need to borrow, you might need to borrow each year. So you want to estimate at the end of 4 years of paying this amount, can we afford that? So it's not just year one you have to get through. Is the student going to be going on to graduate school? That's something you want to take into consideration now. So that because a student might need to borrow on their own, sometimes a significant amount for graduate school because there's less scholarships and grants at the graduate level. So there's a lot of borrowing when it comes to graduate school. So you don't want to over borrow as a undergrad if they know they're going on to medical school or law school or want to get their MBA. You really want to think of a plan that's going to make financial sense for your family that limits borrowing. All the other stuff, such as academic fit, school fit, culture of the school, all of that is critically important. But tonight I'm focusing on that affordability piece because that is also just as critically important for the family. So appeals, we do have a great webinar recording. You can scan this QR code to access it on financial aid appeals. And so we have this esteemed panel of financial aid administrators that are on this recording that talk about how appeals work at their school. So depending on the school, they might want a different form. Another school might want to get, tax return transcripts in. It really depends on what you're appealing and, what their process is. But it's an opportunity for you to share any unique circumstances that your family might be going through, especially as it relates to the finances. Has there been a significant drop in income or assets in your family since you filled out those financial aid forms? When you filled out those financial aid forms, you were reporting 22 income, but now it's 24. Maybe one of the parents has lost a job and that you can't expect that 22 income this year. So colleges do need to know that, and they want to know that so that they can help you and potentially make an adjustment. If there are any other big changes, such as, roof caved in, you have $20,000 in house damage that you don't haven't accounted for, that you need to use savings for, or unreimbursed medical expenses, things like that. Those are all things that could come into play that these colleges have talked about in this video. So you do want to check in with the financial aid office to find out what their process is, when they want your appeal information, what documentation they'll need. And then they'll review that information and potentially make adjustments to your financial aid offer, depending on whether they have their own resources or if they can make room in your eligibility to that could make you eligible for more federal resources or even state resources. So just keep that in mind. Colleges are willing to work with you, but given this crunch timeline we're in, you do want to be in touch with them. Go to those accepted student days. Maybe set up a Zoom appointment or send an email to schedule a call. Try calling them on the phone. If you can't get through, be patient. Everybody is calling colleges right now within this, reduced time frame, and they're working triple overtime to try and get financial aid offers out the door. So just, do your best, be as patient as you can with them, but do get in touch if you do have a good reason to appeal. So not just negotiating because you want more money, but an actual financial appeal. Okay, so I do have a question about borrowing for, any additional amounts. that they need to come up with. So I'm going to hold off on that question because I'm going to cover that right now. So we'll go through some of these methods to pay the college bill. So first, of course, we want to access as much as the free money we can. Private scholarships, scholarships in the college or university. Typically, you'll receive those just by applying to the school, but there could be a department on campus that has a smaller scholarship the student can apply for. Your best bet is really to start locally with any local scholarships, particularly through the guidance office at the high school. Um, Many of those deadlines may have passed depending on the schools, but keep in touch with them. Usually you'll find out about local scholarships around graduation time. Students usually find out around then if they were getting any scholarships from the local community. Any foundations you're a part of, civic organizations, religious organizations, community groups, your employer, do they have scholarships available? Search down every avenue for free money. That's the most common question I get this time of year when families are trying to figure out a plan to pay the bill. Well, they want to know, how can I get more free money? How can I get more scholarships? And there's also college scholarship search engines online. You should never have to pay anybody for a free scholarship search or to apply for financial aid. There's MEFA Pathway, which is MEFA's college and career web portal, and College Board, fastweb.com. Those are all reputable sites that you can go in. Student can go in, fill in demographic data, and then they'll get emails back with scholarships they might be eligible to apply for based on their profile. So definitely, follow MEFA on social. We're always listing, new scholarship alerts that we're hearing about, and it's not too late to apply. Next, you want to look at savings, any money that the family has saved, whether it's through a 529 college savings plan, a prepaid plan. Dig up those old savings bonds from christenings or first birthdays. If family members have offered to help pay, or maybe a godparent has a college savings plan, so they're also saving. Figure out who has what, who's able to contribute. Try and tap into as much of that past income in the form of savings as you can. If you have saved through one of MEFA's plans, the Massachusetts MEFA U plan or the Massachusetts MEFA U fund, which is the 529 account, feel free to get in touch with us. If you have a U plan, we can look up that school, tell you how much your certificate is worth at that particular school, or if you would cash out at a non-participating school. We can also help you with understanding your U fund, what you have available, and how you want to utilize that, whether you utilize it all the first year so you don't have to borrow, or maybe spread it out so you have a little bit to use each year. It really depends on your family, how much you've saved, and how you might want to utilize those funds. So once you've tapped into savings and exhausted that resource, the next step is to look at what you can afford out of pocket. So not just with the loan payment, but with current cash out on hand. You can utilize an interest-free monthly payment plan. Every college has one. It's a great way to budget what you owe, part or all of what you owe. It doesn't have to be all of what you owe. And there's usually a minimum enrollment fee of maybe about $100 or so. Usually these plans start in May, June, or July. So once you know what school the student is going to, you want to get set up on their payment plan as soon as you can so that you can take the full time to do that. So contact the college for more information. They should have that information on their website, and they likely will send that information to you on the bill as well. So once you've exhausted those resources, and you might have a little bit of a balance left, depending on your situation, you might need to look at family borrowing above and beyond the federal direct student loan. We always recommend that families and students utilize that federal direct student loan first because of all the benefits we talked about, and then borrow either through Federal Plus Loan, a loan through MEFA, or another bank or lender. We call those private or alternative loans, to help cover any unmet need or any gap. Now, keep in mind, additional loans above and beyond that federal direct student loan do require good established credit history. Typically, students are not eligible to apply for these loans on their own. because they're not working full-time, most of them. They don't have established credit history. So they do need credit-worthy co-signers. Family loans, like loans through MEFA, for example, the student and the credit-worthy co-signer are both on the loan. So it's not a parent or a student loan. It's really more of a shared responsibility. Again, think in terms of that 4-year plan. If you need to borrow for year one, and let's say you can afford that payment, multiply it by 4, assuming you'll need to borrow for years 2, 3, and 4. Can you afford that payment by 4? That's really important question to ask before depositing at a college. If the student is expected to help mom and dad pay back those parent loans or family loans, keep in mind, will they be able to do that based on their starting salary, based on their career goals and, education goals, if they're going to be going back to graduate school, for example. We do have some great comparing loan option webinars coming up in June and July. We have the recording of last year's program on our website if you want to watch it now. And I'll have the QR code to sign up for those webinars at the end of the presentation. So you can just scan it with your camera on your phone if you want to sign up tonight. But that'll be a great webinar where we'll get much more in depth into rates, terms, what it means to defer the loan, and how much extra interest that adds on when you're pushing out that timeline. Because the repayment timeline, whether it's 10 years, 15 years, or whatever it might be, is really important because that's going to determine how much interest you're going to be assessed over the life of that loan. In addition, based on the interest rate that you've been given, based on repayment options and, credit scores and things like that. Now, typically, if you apply for more than one education loan, you're shopping around within a 45-day window, it only counts as one inquiry on your credit report. Now, MEFA is a great tool to help make this plan and just to kind of poke around and run the numbers, so to speak. So it's our MEFA loan student loan payment calculator. So I'll just show you real quick here. So let's pretend we have a $20,000 balance due, and it's going to be a student's going to be a freshman. So we have 4 years before graduation, and we have a exceptional credit score. So I'll just hit exceptional so we can calculate it based on really high credit score, which is going to determine the lowest rate as well. So the higher your credit score, the lower your rate, and vice versa, for example. Now, MEFA has 5 different repayment options to choose from. As you can see, if we look at down below at the interest rates, if you start making payments immediately, either over 10 years or 15 years, you're going to save on interest. Look at that total cost of the loan. You can see it's not just the interest rate that's lower that's determining that lower cost, but it's also making payments of principal and interest while the student's in school, doing a 10-year loan versus 15. All of those little decisions can add up to big savings on the total cost of the loan. But you can see here for a $20,000 loan, if we do, let's say we do immediate repayment because there's that lower interest rate, it's going to be about $168 to about $217 a month, depending on which option you choose. So if you can afford more than that minimum loan payment, then let's not borrow the full $20,000. Let's change this amount to $10,000 and see what the numbers look like for monthly payments on a $10,000 loan. So you can see that total cost of the loan has dropped dramatically, obviously, as well as those monthly payments. So it's a good tool to use to run the numbers. And I use this all the time when I'm talking to families and we're trying to help, create a strategy based on their affordable monthly payment. That's the key, is what can you afford per month? So if we look at this combination strategy, an example of a $20,000 balance, we're looking at, trying to utilize that savings. So student worked over the summer, they saved a little bit. They're going to contribute towards the bill $1,000. Parents have saved about $16,000. So they've decided we're going to spread that out over 4 years and do $4,000 a year over 4 years. So there's $5,000 chipping away off the bill. The family wasn't able to save all of what they owe, which is okay. Most families haven't been able to, but whatever you can put towards it, that's going to help reduce your borrowing. Now we still have $15,000 left, and this family has said, I can't afford to put 15 or even 20,000 all on a payment plan, because I can't afford 1,500 a month on a 10-month plan or $2,000 a month on a 10-month plan. But I can afford $600 a month, which is more than that minimum loan payment. So I'm going to do $500 a month on that 10-month interest repayment plan through the college for $5,000, a portion of what I owe. Now we've chopped our bill in half by using savings, past income, and present income. The rest of it, we still have to borrow half of $10,000, but it's better than borrowing the full 20,000, as you could see in the savings and interest in the lower monthly payment. So my $10,000 loan at about $100 a month, if we're using round numbers, plus our payment plan at $500 a month, there's our $600 affordable payment to pay what's left towards this $20,000 balance. This is a really good way to, use a combination of resources. So feel free to type some questions in, and I will get to those towards the end, where we're getting closer to the end here. And then I'll stop for all the questions. So if you haven't applied for financial aid, it's not too late to do so. Get that FAFSA in ASAP. Now, we know that a lot of people have had problems filling out the FAFSA, filing it, submitting it, signing it, and there's a lot of reasons for those delays. But definitely at least start it, try and get that in. The deadline for state aid here in Massachusetts is May 1st. So make sure that FAFSA is submitted before then to be considered for state aid. Federal aid, including those direct loans, are available year round. Now colleges, some of their financial aid deadlines have passed, but many are extending those deadlines. Or if you ask, they may be able to be flexible, not just on the financial aid deadline, but even the enrollment deposit deadline. Some schools have extended their enrollment deposit deadline to May 15th or even June 1st. So check in with them to find out if it's been extended, and if not, if they will give you flexibility based on any, FAFSA submission issues that you have had. But just keep in mind, colleges know what you're struggling with on the FAFSA. They know about these delays because they're feeling it on their end. They're now trying to process all these FAFSAs. So just know that from what we've heard, most colleges are willing to be flexible. You just have to get in touch with them. Payment plans are open year round, and you can apply for any private loans, such as loans through MEFA as well. Excuse me. So let's talk about the timeline and what's coming up next. You do need to pay an enrollment deposit at hopefully the student's first choice school that they were accepted to by the deposit deadline. Typically that's May 1st, but as I mentioned, some of those deadlines have been extended depending on the school. Your fall semester bill, which is half the tuition bill for the year, is going to be sent in late June, sometime in July. Again, bill due dates and all of that might be pushed out a little bit too this year. And it will be due about 3 to 5 weeks later in July or August. If your family does need to borrow, let's say they need to apply for a MEFA loan, it's usually a pretty quick instant credit decision. You can get this done in a half hour or so, signing your promissory note online and all of that. But what if there's an identity theft issue on your credit report, or you have your credit report frozen because of that, and you forgot to lift the freeze to apply for the loan? Little things like that can delay the process. So just give yourself a 2-week buffer, even though we know that you can get everything done very quickly. And set up those payment plans according to the college's schedule. All right, so let's talk real quick about the wait list. So some colleges have very long wait lists and don't accept any students off their wait list. Some colleges don't have wait lists. Some may select some students off of it. It depends on the school and what their policies are. Some schools may not give the same amount of financial aid to a student off the wait list as they would if they were originally accepted through regular admissions. So just find out if a student has been waitlisted and it's at a school that they still are very interested in. Ask these questions. Ask what their financial aid policy is for waitlisted students, so that if they get off the wait list, will you be able to afford it? If they say no financial aid from the college for waitlisted students, and you know that based on federal or state aid you've gotten, it's really not going to work for you financially, then you can like mentally cross that school off your list. But if it's a school where, yep, you might still have a good chance at financial aid and everything's looking good, the student might get off the wait list. I had that happen to a good friend of mine last year where they didn't think there was a shot that the student would get off the wait list because it's a very competitive school. And guess what? She got off the wait list. She lost her deposit at the first school she deposited at before May 1st. It was about $500, but did get to go to her top choice school, get the same amount of financial aid that she would have gotten otherwise, and they were able to make it work. But it doesn't always work out quite that easily. So just continue with the admissions process at this point. Make sure the student formally accepts their spot on the wait list. Make sure they're in touch with admissions, send them any updated test scores or grades that can help boost that admissions application. Keep up with that demonstrated interest that can help, especially at this late stage of the process. They want to accept students that are still, very interested in their school. And keep an eye out for emails. All right, so wrapping things up here, I'll talk about some resources and then we'll get to the rest of the questions. The financial aid office is going to be your top resource right now at this stage of the process to help you with understanding your financial aid eligibility at their school, understand how they came up with the financial aid offer, what the requirements are and the eligibility to keep that financial aid from the school. They're the ones you want to go to if you need to appeal or ask about any special circumstances to understand what the process is like to appeal the financial aid at that school. Get in touch with them in, whatever way is going to be convenient for you. If you have to call and you have to leave a voicemail, leave a voicemail. Give them an opportunity to return your phone call, send an email so you have that paper trail. Keep in mind, colleges are, dealing with 6 months of work right now, and they're going to process it and trying to process it in a few weeks. So it might be pretty busy. So just be patient with the colleges. Definitely try to attend any open campus programs if you can. Usually there's a financial aid program going on. Sometimes they have one-on-one meetings scheduled or, lender fairs. I know I'll be at Endicott College on April 6th. So if you look at Endicott, I'll see you there. My other colleague will be at Curry College. So you might even have folks like that there to provide some guidance and resources. So utilize all those options to try and make sense of what you're being given so that you have a really good comfort level, at least of understanding how your aid was determined. MEFA is going to be a really great resource going forward beyond tonight. Sign up for our emails if you don't already. All those calculators, videos, webinar recordings, all of that is on our website, so you can track that down. If you like podcasts, listen to ours, when you're driving into work or going on your walk with the dog. We always have incredible guest speakers with timely information to keep you up to date on pretty much every stage of the college enrollment process. And take advantage of folks like me at MEFA that can help you. Call us, email us, schedule a one-on-one appointment if you need to. This time of year, we're often doing one-on-one appointments where families will email us their financial aid offers. We get on a Zoom call together and we can, do the calculators together and really understand what the comparison is between those schools the student was accepted to. You're going to get copies of these slides so you can see all these resources here. Everything I've basically been talking about, our social network, our podcast videos, all of our webinars that are all recorded if you weren't able to make one. Or if you might want to go to that lone webinar, but you can't make it that night, you can register for it and you'll get the recording. Anybody who registers for our webinars will get the recordings. All right, so I'm going to leave it. I'm going to go back to the slide in a second, but here's our social channels. You'll get those. And also here's our, our phone numbers on there as well, right here on this slide. So let me leave it right here on this slide while I answer Q&A. So if you are interested in these webinars, you can scan it with your phone, and you can register right there on your phone right now while we're answering questions. So we have that April 4th webinar coming up to help families who are stuck in the FAFSA process or need to file their FAFSA, get some one-on-one assistance there. If you have a U plan, we have a webinar coming up on how to utilize your U plan. And here's those QR codes for those college loan comparison webinars where I'm going to dig into loan disclosure statements so that you really understand what the end cost is for different loan programs. That's really important. So utilize all these free resources that MEFA has to offer. We're here for you. And if you do have to hop off before we end Q&A, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. You'll get this recording as well as a PDF of the slides in your email box at hopefully some point tomorrow. So thanks for joining us tonight, and I am going to dive right into the questions. All right, so I have one where it says student has signed their FAFSA form, but the FAFSA won't let the wife or parent sign the parent section. We're stuck. It says we need to sign it, but won't let us. So the button is grayed out. So it sounds like that's a technical problem with the FAFSA. I would recommend you can contact FSA. Their website is at studentaid.fsa.gov. I believe that's the website. It's all over the MEFA website as well. You can access it there. But they're very hard to get in touch with right now. So you can definitely give us a call and we can kind of help you, maybe do a screen share or something like that. Or you can call them. It sounds like it's a technical bug, which we've had a lot of with the FAFSA this year. But hopefully, as FAFSAs, our understanding is that as FAFSAs get processed, and even submitting it with just the student signature is submitting it, hopefully some of these bugs will work themselves out, and you'll be able to finalize your form and sign it. But anything you have for a screenshot to send to the college, if they don't think you've gotten your FAFSA in, you can send that to them just to make sure everybody knows you've at least tried. Definitely attend that April 4th webinar. We'll definitely be able to help you there as well if you don't have help between now and then. Okay, so here's a really good question. If a school gives a financial aid offer for early decision admission based on the CSS profile, this could be true for regular admission as well. So the CSS profile is a form that many of you may have had to fill out for colleges who have their own private funding. That profile form captures a lot more information than the FAFSA. So colleges that had you fill out the CSS profile, they're actually able to give you a pretty accurate estimate, even on FAFSA data that you haven't submitted yet or hadn't been processed yet, because they know what those formulas are and they can estimate that. So if you got an estimated financial aid offer, it's likely going to be pretty close once your FAFSA is processed. So keep that in mind. If there's huge differences, then you definitely want to get in touch with the financial aid office. But they can't say it's final until they get that FAFSA information. But that's a really good question. Okay, another good question. How do you apply for state financial aid? So very easy. You just have to fill out that FAFSA form. So just by stating that you reside in Massachusetts, your FAFSA information will automatically go to OSFA, the Office of Student Financial Aid, which is another office here in Massachusetts that processes state aid here in Massachusetts. No matter what state you live in, FAFSA will send that information to your state financial aid or scholarship office. In Massachusetts, it's called OSFA, Office of Student Financial Assistance. So you don't have to do anything separate to apply for state aid. All right, so that's all I see for questions that have come in the door. So thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Hopefully this is really helpful for you and you have a lot of resources to take forward. Definitely get in touch with us. We know a lot of you are stuck on that FAFSA, so call us, email us, or definitely attend that April 4th webinar where we'll have financial aid administrators help out and be able to be volunteers, as well as the April 8th FAFSA day, or it's really at night, which is another opportunity to update those FAFSAs. So take advantage of all the free resources, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you, everybody, and have a great evening.